Wade Woods. I've heard many stories about imaginary friends, but I've kind of kept mine to myself. After all, the kid with the imaginary friend is usually seen as the weird one. But since this is the internet and nobody knows me here, I feel safe enough to finally tell anyone who wants to listen to my story. My childhood was pretty average. We lived in an average town, my parents had average jobs, and we did normal average things just like everyone else in our neighborhood. You might think being average is pretty boring, and it was, sometimes. That's why I started playing with Wade. Wade was my imaginary friend. I remember playing out on the street and wishing for a friend. I sat on the sidewalk, crossed my fingers and toes, closed my eyes, held my breath, and wished for a Wade to walk by. And then he did. Wade Woods. I remember he was a bit taller than me, and lighter, and he had freckles. His laugh sounded just like mine. I played with him so much I started believing he was real, and the more time passed, the more he evolved into his own person. He didn't feel like my creation anymore. He was real. I adored him. He was like the big brother I never had. Sometimes we would play in my room, and he would jump around the floor and pretend he was Bigfoot. My mother would hear the banging and tell me to stop being so loud. When I told her it was Wade, she of course didn't believe me. I asked him where he was from, and he'd point towards the forest. He sometimes asked me if I wanted to follow him there, but I wasn't allowed anywhere past our street. Whenever me and Mom went for a walk, Wade would follow us. He'd walk far behind us, and I would look back at him, laugh, and urge him to come walk next to us. He never did. Sometimes I could hear my parents talk about me and Wade behind closed doors. By now, I was totally convinced that Wade was real, and it made me really angry that they doubted his existence. I told Wade about my feelings, and he told me that he only showed himself to people that believed he existed, and the only one who believed he existed was me. My parents and me started arguing a lot. They wanted me to stop talking about Wade, and after a while I did. From then on, I would play with him outside on the street. We'd have so much fun that I would forget the time, and my parents would have to come and get me. We would argue about that too, and they started giving me a curfew. I had to be home at 5 during weekdays and 6 at weekends. That meant I could only play with Wade for about 2 hours a day. Whenever school was finished, I rushed to go and see him, and we'd play for 2 hours until it was time for me to go home. Weekends I didn't see him much at all, because my parents made sure we spent the weekends out of town. One Sunday afternoon, when I came to see Wade, he was sad. He said he had been waiting for me all weekend and I hadn't come. I explained to him Mom and Dad's rules, and he understood. And then I said I wished I could be with him always. And he once again told me to come with him to the forest. I said I couldn't, so we just continued playing as usual. Pretty soon, it was past my curfew again, and I could hear my parents calling me in the distance. "Crap, I don't want to go home now," I said. "You don't have to," said Wade. "Come with me." He grabbed my arm and started pulling me towards the forest, but I knew there was no chance I would ever get to see him again if I ran away with him now. I tried getting him to let go of my arm, but he wouldn't. He just kept pulling me and repeating, "Come with me, come with me." My arm was starting to hurt. His nails were digging into my arm. I screamed, "Let me go!" And he let go and disappeared into the woods. My parents had heard me scream and were completely beside themselves when they reached me. They saw the scratches on my arms and forbade me to ever be outside alone again for a long time. When they asked me who had scratched me, I told them it was Wade, but they thought I was covering for some kid in our neighborhood. After all, Wade wasn't real. Or was he? This story has a second part, where Wade comes back when the girl is older. If anybody wants to listen to it, just click the card. Hi everyone, thanks for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, why not leave a thumbs up? And while you're at it, subscribe to my channel. I love reading your comments. And if you have a story you would like to share, send me a message. Take care everyone, and be safe.